Hi, my name is Kevin Prouty. I'm the VP of Research here at the Aberdeen Group. Today I'm here to talk a little bit about the ERP impact on supplier management. So as we usually do, we start out with what our results and recommendations were from all the research we do. When it comes to the impact on supplier management when people are using ERP, one of the key things we found was using ERP as the foundation for our sales and operations planning process. We do a lot of research on S&OP in our supply chain business, but we found that it was a key differentiator for best-in-class companies, how they use ERP and its impact on sales and operations planning. The other thing we found was standardizing and streamlining your business processes, especially in the supply chain around procurement, purchasing, EDI, things like that. Being able to communicate with your suppliers and plan with them, streamlining and standardizing those processes was also critical. The last thing we found and recommend is visibility, what we call visibility and execution. And that is basically using your ERP system and to manage your suppliers. We found best-in-class companies, what they were really doing and using their ERP system for was to get visibility into the administrative processes within the ERP system, all the transactions that go on around supplier management, purchase orders, three-way matches, invoicing, having all that stuff cleaned up and able to have visibility into when stuff's arriving and when you're paying for it. So when we conduct our research, no matter what the subject, one of the first things we look at and ask is about the pressures companies are feeling, the pressures they feel in their day-to-day operations. One of the top things every company feels, no matter what industry they're in, is really around costs. It's being able to manage costs, become more efficient in that manner. Next one is usually managing growth expectations, and the other one is being easy to do business with. That is usually a customer service issue. They want to make sure they're as easy as possible to do business with, but that also translates over to the supply side. You want suppliers to be able to efficiently submit invoices, get payments, and deliver products into you don't want your systems holding you back. Now, once we look at pressures, we ask companies what are the strategies and actions you're taking to address those pressures. One of the key things that comes up every single time is around business pressures. And in fact, this research was no different. We found the top 3 items and actions that people were taking to address their pressures were standardizing business processes, streamlining those processes, and then providing some visibility into those same processes. So it's really all around business processes. It's becoming as efficient and lean as possible in your business processes. Now, when we say standardized business processes, we always say it with a caveat, and that is there are certain key differentiators that you have that you don't want to standardize. But when it comes to things like accounts payable into your supply chain, no one really wins the battle having the best accounts payable. You want to be able to standardize that process across your entire operation. Now, one of the things we always look at is best-in-class companies. We always try to define what is best-in-class in a certain category. Well, in manufacturing, we have 4 key metrics. How quickly you close your books, your day sales outstanding, on-time shipments, and growth in operating margin. What we found in our research is that best-in-class companies are able to close their books in half the time of laggard companies. That means the top 20% of companies close their books in half the time of the bottom 30%. And once again, that is a key metric for us in looking at how efficient they are. Day sales outstanding, 38 days for best in class, 52 for laggards. On-time shipment in the very high 90s compared to 80% for laggards. And I can tell you as a former plant manager, if I ran my plant at 80% on-time shipment, I would have been out of a job within months. And then the last one is growth in operating margin. We saw best-in-class companies have 14% growth and the laggards really in the single digits at 8 to 9%. So that's how we define what best-in-class is. Now, when we look at ERP and supply chain management tools, one of the key things we look at is, are the tools built in, or are the tools something you got to go buy separately from your ERP system? So first, I'm going to look at what we call modules. Modules are fully integrated into an ERP system. So the key supplier management modules are purchasing modules. It's almost universal. Everyone, whether they're laggards, average, or best in class, they use the purchasing module. Warehousing modules. How do you manage a warehouse? 3/4 of best in class and around 50% for the rest of the company. So you can see a big difference between best in class and the rest. Inventory module. Best in class, all of them use it, whereas only around 3/4 of the rest do. Supplier relationship management. That's that catch-all for all those little applications and modules you use to manage your suppliers. Over half of best-in-class companies use some form of supplier relationship management module, and only 20% of the rest of the companies do that. And now a critical one that some people overlook, and that's EDI, electronic data interchange. That is a key communication tool for moving transactions between suppliers and customers. Best-in-class companies are twice as likely to be using their built-in ERP EDI system over other companies. Now let's look at some external tools. These are the extensions. These are the tools you're going to buy that connect to your ERP system but don't necessarily become part of your ERP system. We looked at supplier relationship management again. 25% of best-in-class companies use some form of supplier relationship management, not part of their ERP system. We found no laggards were willing to admit that they used it. Warehouse modules, 50% for best-in-class, very few laggards. Transportation management, only 10% of all companies use some form of transportation management, so that wasn't really a critical tool for supplier management in the manufacturing space. Now, from a supply chain planning standpoint, we found that over 3 times as many best-in-class companies as laggards use some form of supply chain management. And that's an external tool, as I said. EDI, an external EDI tool, over 1/3 of best-in-class companies use it, and less than 1/4 of the rest use it. So one of the distinctions we want to make between extensions and modules, as I said, modules are an integral part of an ERP system, whereas an extension is an add-on. One of the interesting things to look at is where do they buy that extension from? What we found is best-in-class companies are significantly more likely to have purchased that extension from their ERP vendor versus laggards and average, who are probably down around 20 to 30% of those companies are going to their ERP vendor for those particular tools. So one of the key takeaways here is that if you're looking at an external tool, if you're looking for any kind of tool for supplier management, if you have an ERP system, you should go to your ERP supplier first. We don't necessarily say you have to buy it from them, but you should at least look at them and talk to them about it. Now, once they've implemented ERP and start using some of those supplier management tools, let's look at some of the benefits they got. These are some overall benefits, but they're still critical benefits. Operations costs, of which supply chain is a critical component. So the operation cost reductions you got as a best-in-class company, 55% once they implemented ERP versus 28% for everyone else. Inventory reduction, which has a critical component of supply chain in it. 69% reduction for best-in-class, 39% for everyone else. Inventory turns. Best-in-class companies, 62% had an improvement in inventory turns versus 32% for laggards. Time to decision. So in other words, once they implemented ERP, time to decision improved 38% for best-in-class and less than half that for laggards. So you can see, even beyond those metrics we use to capture best-in-class categories, you can see there are significant benefits being derived by best-in-class companies from using ERP. So now let's take a quick look at the recommendations again. Sales and operations planning. Use your ERP system as a foundation for sales and operations planning. Supply chain is one of the most critical components for sales and operations planning. Best-in-class companies use that ERP foundation. Standardize and streamline your processes, especially on the supply end. How you procure, how you purchase, how you manage accounts receivable, accounts payable. All that stuff is a core of what ERP lets you do. And then visibility and execution. Being able to look to your ERP vendor for the tools you need to manage your suppliers, that will be one step towards best in class. So as a final thought, just look at supplier management as part of your ERP strategy. Don't just implement ERP and think, oh, I'm going to bolt supplier management on later. Look at your ERP system, look at the basic core functions of it, and then look at the extensions. Putting that all together, once again, can give you a best-in-class strategy. For more information on this topic, visit aberdeen.com or sage.com. Thank you.